Begin with yet another poll showing a big jump in support for President Trump's impeachment. This time it's the latest Fox News poll in which 51% of voters support the impeachment inquiry and Trump's removal from office. That's up 9 points since last month. 43% do not, down 7 points. Those who support the impeachment probe include 13% of Republicans, 39% of independents, and 85% of Democrats. Compared to previous administrations, more than half, 51%, said that the Trump administration is more corrupt, up 5 points since last month. 27% said it is less corrupt, and 18% said it is about the same, down 6. Two-thirds of voters polled said that it was inappropriate for Trump to ask foreign leaders to investigate his rivals. 25% said they believed it was appropriate. When asked about what Trump said on the call with Ukraine's president, 43% called it an impeachable offense, 27% agreed it was inappropriate but not impeachable, and 17% said the conversation was appropriate. Finally, almost half of voters, 48%, said the impeachment inquiry was Trump getting what he deserved. 37% believed people are out to get him. Joe, these are important. Why?
Well, they're breathtaking, actually, is what they are for anybody observing politics. For Donald Trump, for people close to him in the White House, these are breathtaking numbers. They're staggering numbers. Remember, these poll numbers are occurring at the same time they are raising hundreds of millions of dollars and spending tens of millions of dollars to burnish their image on television, in digital ads. That money is being burnt. If you're giving your money to Donald Trump right now, it is literally going up in flames in these digital ads, because the more they put out there, the more his numbers collapse and the more erratic he gets. I mean, just going through these numbers, Willie, 51%, a majority say that Donald Trump is more corrupt than past administrations. Of course, 51% saying that he should be removed from office. This is a staggering number. Richard Nixon went through 2 years of Watergate before reaching that number. And now 51% saying he should be impeached and removed from office. And I've got to say, of course, 66% say that that call that Donald Trump said was perfect to the Ukrainian president. They said it was wrong. Two-thirds of Americans said it was wrong. But Willie, what about this final number that almost half of Americans say in this Fox News poll, say Donald Trump is getting what he deserves, and far less number of people actually clinging to their conspiracy theories that suggest that people are out to get Trump. Bad news on all fronts from this Fox News poll.
It's a remarkable day, Joe, when you go to foxnews.com, and the screaming headline is record support for Trump impeachment. This is a Fox News poll, and as you point out correctly, this isn't just support for the impeachment inquiry. This is 51% of Americans saying they support Donald Trump being impeached and removed from office in a Fox News poll. There are a lot of polls, Jonathan Lemire, that the president dismisses. He cited incorrectly poll numbers yesterday that I won't even repeat because they were so incorrect. But there is a growing body of evidence. There is a growing number of polls that the president can't ignore that show a majority of Americans believe he should be removed from office.
First of all, go Astros.
Cheap shot.
You wanted in on that.
Secondly, the White House is keenly aware of these polls, and we know the president is particularly sensitive when one is from Fox News.
Yeah.
I mean, they have an independent, strong polling department there. They're considered a very reputable pollster, but he believes them that they should be part of the Fox News operation, which he, of course, has told people around him and said on Twitter that he thinks should be more or less working for him. But this shows you, again, the White House is just now sort of getting their hands around just how fast this story is moving and how dangerous it is to them. That they were caught flat-footed after the word of the phone call came out. They thought that releasing the transcript or rough transcript, the memo about the call might help. Every step they've taken since to try to change the narrative has failed, and much to the president's anger. We've seen him explode time and time again, not just on Twitter, but in settings in the Oval Office, at the White House. He's frustrated and he's angry at his staff that they haven't been able to change anything. And what we've seen this week is they finally have come forward with some sort of strategy, and that is to completely stonewall. That letter they sent to House Speaker Pelosi a couple of days ago has very little legal justification. It's certainly a political document. Experts we've talked to said doesn't hold up, probably wouldn't hold up in court. In fact, it cites cable news appearances more than it does case law. But this is their attempt to stonewall, to fight, to try to make this, to rally.
But Jonathan, let me interrupt you here.
Sure.
Let me interrupt for a second, because I alluded to your article that you wrote, I think it was on Sunday, where you talked about the very things that Donald Trump did to get elected, the very things he did for the first 2.5 years of his presidency to help him survive scandals are now working against him. This is a prime example. When you have over 55, 56, 57, 58% of Americans believing that the impeachment inquiry is legitimate, according to ABC News polls and Wall Street Journal, NBC News polls, and the president stonewalls it, oh my gosh. Well, 58% of Americans are thinking he's stonewalling a legitimate investigation. You can look and see what he did yesterday. I mean, the attacks that he received from Republicans were without a doubt the fiercest he's received since he's won the party's nomination back in the summer of 2016. You know, again, this is Donald Trump. Hey, let's change the subject. Let's create another controversy, one that's even going to inflame people even more. And what happens, it just makes Republicans turn on the man even more. I think you're really onto something here, that his untraditional moves, actually, that have worked for him for the past 2.5 years won't work now. This is the first time the man couldn't walk out on Fifth Avenue, shoot somebody, and get away with it, because it seems that a majority of Americans are finally on to him.
That's right. That's exactly the point I was making here, is that what's happened is he's tried to change the story with what's happened in Turkey and Syria, and all that's done is alienate the very people he needs most, Republican senators, who actually control his fate in their hands, and his attempts to deflect, discredit, and attack the integrity of the investigation, which we saw was sort of the key to his playbook during the Mueller probe, and key to his playbook for the investigations that House Democrats launched after they took control of that chamber. That's not working right now. The American people are not buying it. They believe, as these polls reflect, that this is something that's worth pursuing, investigating, and in that Fox News poll, perhaps even sending him out of office. And right now, the standard tactics that he's used aren't effective. He's flailing, and they're going to have to come up with something else, because all this does now is risk turning more and more of both the public and potentially lawmakers against him.
You know, we're going to show Rick Tyler some screenshots of some tweets from Republicans, especially Lindsey Graham, but also from Eric Erickson and others who are looking at what's happening with Donald Trump's betrayal of the Sirs, Brit Hume, others that usually you can count on to defend Donald Trump, and if not at least defending outright, certainly then to take an anti-Trump pose. Yesterday, that veneer was completely stripped away, and you had Eric Erickson saying it's hard to imagine how a Democrat could be much worse than this. You had, of course, Lindsey Graham being extraordinarily fierce. Brit Hume talking about the blood of the Kurds being on Donald Trump. This was a stain that was not going to go away, and that's actually what the almost the entire Republican allies, the Republican Party said. And isn't it fascinating, Rick, that the president who blamed Barack Obama for inventing ISIS is now being blamed by Republicans. Republicans in his own party who have feared a tweet from him in the past. They are now blaming him for ISIS's resurgence, saying you are responsible for the resurgence of ISIS, and the blood of ISIS will be on your hands.
It really is remarkable. I mean, this is the one thing the Republicans have finally found a backbone to stand up against the president on. And perhaps it is because some of these poll numbers, and the poll, the number that sticks out to me is the 48% getting what he deserves. You mentioned that the poll numbers have moved rapidly recently, and that is true. and Nixon, it took 2 years. But I would put a thread through the whole thing. When a conventional president, if they had just been through 2 years of investigation about Russian interference, which a bipartisan Senate committee has now once again confirmed, you would think a normal president would avoid any appearance of trying to get a foreign power to interfere in an election. Yet that's precisely what he did. And now he's in deep trouble on that. And it is, in my view, an impeachable offense. Whether he gets impeached or not or convicted, that's another story. And then what does he do? He splits the Republican coalition by betraying the Kurds. And now I can't resist but mentioning yesterday that he actually suggested that the Kurds deserve this because they didn't help us in Normandy. And I'm sure that's probably true because the Kurds didn't bring their naval fleet to help us with the invasion of Normandy. You know, it's just a remarkable thing. But look, I am glad to see the Republicans coming out strongly against the president's betrayal of the Kurds. But I just can't help this lingering feeling of too little, too late.
Well,
yeah, and you know, Mika, let me say it for you, Mika, so you don't have to. You look at what the president's been doing. You look at his actions over the past several months. You look at his tweets. You look at some really disturbing video that we're going to be showing later on, talking about when he meets grieving families. And let me just say, every single Republican knows, what every Republican on Capitol Hill knows, Donald Trump is not well. Donald Trump's not emotionally fit to be president, Republicans, and you know it. He's not mentally fit to be president of the United States right now, and you know it. There are allies that sacrifice their lives, sacrifice their everything for us, who are on the run this morning, who are bleeding out, who are dying because Donald Trump decided on a whim to release them. There are women and children once again in danger of being raped and brutalized and tortured by ISIS. Donald Trump suggests that we can just let ISIS go and they can go back to. There are so many disturbing things, Mika. It is more obvious than ever. Donald Trump is neither emotionally or mentally fit to be president of the United States. That is without debate. It really is. Just look at all the actions of the past several weeks, and it just keeps getting worse. And the consequences are growing grimmer by the day.
Every moment.
Any Republican that keeps Donald Trump in office, every Republican that allows him to remain commander-in-chief, they, like Donald Trump, own the resurgence of ISIS. They, like Donald Trump, own the collapse of longtime alliances. Donald Trump said alliances were easy yesterday. You know what? They're not. They are back-breaking work. They are extraordinary work. Mika, your father knew that as well as anybody in his generation. Alliances, like trade wars, are hard. But we have a president that doesn't understand that. And because that every day, Americans and their closest allies are suffering.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.